welcome to the next installment in our longboard SUP surfing how-to series. Now we've covered a lot about different maneuvers on the longboard SUP, but we've got all of this length in front of us, so today we're going to be talking about walking up and down the board, and more specifically shuffling and cross-stepping on our longboard SUP. Most of us may be unaware that we already use a lot of footwork on our board already. When you paddle onto a wave, you shuffle your feet back to perform a bottom turn, and to get speed or balance down the line, we move forward on the board as well. Footwork is the key to keep your board moving along the wave with speed, control and style, especially on a longboard SUP, as we cannot pump it like a shorter board and need to utilize the board's full length in order to surf it. It's not about how many times you move your feet, but where and when you move them as you move along the wave that will make all of the difference. When surfing through a flat section, you may want to step forward on the board to keep up the speed and trim to connect through to the next section on the wave. The paddle is always a great tool to use when getting through flat sections too. Steeper sections, or when you want to make a turn, stepping back toward the tail is going to allow you to lift the nose and perform a maneuver. Moving around the board using footwork not only helps you to maneuver through sections on the wave, but teaches us how the board reacts on the wave when we stand in different places on the board. It's also the only way you are going to get up on the nose of your SUP to perform a nose ride. Getting to know the board will ultimately help us become a better SUP surfer, and the best way to move around the board is through shuffling our feet or cross-stepping. Now when we first learn about walking up and down our longboard SUP, we want to be using the shuffling technique. However, we always want to make sure that we're focusing on progressing to the cross-step style technique, because that is going to make sure we don't break trim when we walk up and down the board. It's also the best way to get more points if you're SUP surfing in a competition and want to move around on the board. Shuffling is merely the baby step that will enable us to learn how to cross step. Let's learn about both techniques. So to shuffle forward, the way we do this technique is that we want to move our back foot up toward our front foot, and then our front foot extends out up toward the nose of the board back into our surf stance. If we want to move back on the board, our front foot there comes back to our back foot, and we step our back foot back toward the tail into our surf stance again. The main reason we don't want to get into the habit of shuffling is because we are quite heavy on our feet. When we are heavy on our feet, it means that the board judders and it causes vibrations in the water, which slows and stalls our board. In essence, we break the trim of our longboard SUP. When we shuffle our feet, we tend to stomp, forcing the board down, which causes the board to stall, leading to the break in speed. But shuffling is very useful to learning the right way to move around the board and to get a good feel for how the board reacts, because it is the easiest way. So let's take a quick look at the basics of shuffling before we break down cross-stepping. When we shuffle forward, the first thing we do is weight up our front foot so we can lift and slide the back foot up to and next to the front foot. With your weight still on your front foot, place your back foot down next to your front foot and transfer your weight onto your back foot so you can then slide your front foot into surf stance again. You can repeat this again to reach the nose for a nose ride if you like. But shuffling back, we weight up our back foot as we lift and slide our front foot back toward our back foot. Placing your front foot down, we then weight up our front foot to step out our back foot into surf stance. You can see in here why shuffling causes you to break trim, as we change our weight so many different times by placing weight on each foot. Whilst we move up and down the board, you'll notice how we always use the paddle for balance and rest it on the surface of the water or on the lip. This will really help you to be able to stay controlled when you walk the board. There are a few basic things we need to do when we shuffle up and down the longboard SUP. Firstly, we keep our knees bent to stay balanced. Secondly, we always want to be keeping our eyes forward and not looking down at the board. Remember, where we look is where we go. It's okay to glance down to see where your feet are, but don't drop your head down. Thirdly, make sure to open your shoulders and twist your chest to face the nose of the board. This ensures you are keeping the board tracking in a straight line. If you close off your shoulders, you are telling the board to go toward the back of the wave, and because you are further forward, the tail then spins toward the beach. We can also lean on the paddle for balance if we need it. Lastly, we want to try and take light steps and not heavy ones as we continue down the line of the wave. Stepping lightly will enable you to keep trim moving forward. Now let's learn about the cross-stepping technique. Now we're still going to take a few of those techniques from the shuffling into our cross step. However, cross stepping enables us to walk quickly, swiftly, and with control up and down the length of our longboard SUP. Now, I've been longboard surfing since I was about 12 years old, and I can vividly remember learning to cross step, and it was a milestone achievement for me. However, one of the biggest key pieces of advice that I got was that learning to cross step doesn't actually come from your feet. In fact, it's actually far from your feet. Good cross stepping comes from our shoulders. To begin learning to cross step, let's find out why your shoulders are so important. Firstly, your shoulders need to be relaxed. Relaxed shoulders means that your knees are bent as you are not trying to lift up your upper body, which in turn straightens your legs. This is key to staying in control because during the cross step, we want our weight transferring evenly across the board. Relaxed shoulders also means that you create more space for you to step, which equals bigger cross steps. Secondly, just like shuffling, our shoulders need to be open and our chest twisted toward the nose of the board so we can direct the board as we walk forward and back. You don't have to be on the tail to direct the board, as where we point our chest and head is generally where the board is going to go. So this is really important to cross stepping, using your shoulders and chest to direct the board. Plus, when our shoulders and chest are open, we can step more freely. Once you know the importance of your shoulders, we then make our way down the body to our hips. Now our hips are like our shoulders, where we need to twist them open to face forward to the nose of the board. And this allows us to walk forward and back with control. So now your upper body should be roughly at a 45-degree angle between the rail of your board and the nose. I want to take this moment now to show you just how freely we can move when we do open up our shoulders and our chest and our hips, that we can move up and down the board. If we start to point our chest and our shoulders toward the front and open up our hips, we can really move freely throughout our cross steps. So we can go backwards, keeping our hips open. We can really have nice control when we do cross step. If we close off our shoulders and our chest and also our hips, what we do is we can't actually step very far on the board. So we're directing the board toward the back of the wave, or depends if you're surfing backside, you might be trying to get the board going to the front, which means the tail is going to spin out behind us. Now we can use this paddle on the top of the wave or on the wave for balance. But as you cross step, really want to focus on opening up our shoulders, opening up our chest so we can get larger steps, which means we're going to have more control and balance. So closed off, really small steps, and we can't really get very far on the board. Opening up, we can really extend our steps to make our surfing much better. Another key element is to never raise your arms higher than your chest when walking up the board, as this will make you stand tall and lose balance. Try and focus on resting the paddle on the lip of the wave or on the surface of the water so your arms don't go too high. Now that we have our body in the right positions, let's look at how we move our feet in the cross step motion. Nose diving is always a possibility when we first step forward on the board. So let's start to practice this technique on a slow, rolling wave rather than a steep section. Having speed always helps with balance too. So if you have some speed, you will find walking the board much easier. As a difference to shuffling on the board, cross-stepping allows us to transfer our weight evenly through these transitions by rolling our feet and flowing our weight with us as we move, rather than the juddering of shuffling. Let's take a closer look at making one single cross step. To make your first step up the board, create forward momentum by transferring your weight onto your front foot through shifting your hips forward over your front foot. This should feel as though pressure is being applied firstly to the inside of your foot, which then transfers to the outside of your foot. This allows you to lift your back foot for the cross step. At this point, notice how much we rely on the paddle for balance to move up and down the board. Always keep this in mind when moving on the board, as the paddle in the water gives you extra balance. Then, bring your back foot across the front of the other leg so you create a crossover. Place your back foot down lightly with the outside of your foot touching the board first, so not flat. This again allows the board to continue through trim as we are not stamping down. Slowly start to apply pressure to this now front foot by rolling forward with your hips so your weight now sits flat on this foot. This foot now quickly becomes the back foot again as we lift our other foot and place it in front of us in surf stance. Place the foot down at a 45-degree angle to the nose of the board, and remember to keep weight on our back foot again, as we don't want the board to nosedive. However, if you feel like you need to keep weight forward, then do so. Also, if you feel like performing another cross step to reach the nose, then as you place your feet back in surf stance, instead of keeping the weight flat on your back foot, repeat the process of moving your hips forward to start the momentum of weight as you carry on moving toward the nose. But every time we finish our cross step, we should always have our weight on our back foot. Rolling the weight in our feet from the inside to the outside of our front foot and from the outside to the inside of our back foot when walking up the board helps to keep trim, so keep this in mind. When you're ready to move back on the board, for example when you're ready to do a maneuver or a turn, then shift your weight in your hips onto your back foot and then onto the outside of your foot, so you can then lift the front foot and place it behind your other leg. Firstly, place the foot down on the outside edge of your foot and continue to move your weight through with your hips so you can roll onto the inside of your foot. This is because we want to have our weight on our back foot when we get back into surf stance. Cross-stepping riding backside is always slightly harder, as we tend to close our shoulders a lot more than riding frontside. But the steps are the same, and we need to focus on opening up our chest and hips and relaxing those shoulders. You can always try holding a cross step for an extended period of time to get used to the feeling of walking up and down the board with this technique too. Plus, practicing on land always helps you feel more comfortable, so take out those fins and get practicing. Cross-stepping takes some time to learn, but we hope these tips help you feel more confident walking the board. Remember some of these top tips when performing your cross step. Always make sure to look forward where you want to go. Glancing down is okay, but do not drop your head to look at the board. Relax your shoulders and twist your chest and hips in an angle toward the nose of the board. Roll your weight with your hips and through using the inside and outside edges of your feet so you keep trim and balance moving along the board. Your weight should always end up on your back foot when cross-stepping, both forward and back. And finally, keep those knees bent for balance. If you want to learn more about cross-stepping, then make sure you log into your SUPboarder Pro account so you can access the extra video where we learn about how many steps it takes to get to the nose, making faster cross steps, and combining cross-stepping and shuffling to get the most out of your longboard SUP surfing. We hope this video helps you to be able to do some fancy footwork on the board with shuffling or cross-stepping our way up and down the board. Now remember, cross-stepping is going to be that really important technique for us to be using when we are moving up and down the board so we don't break trim. But I really hope that you got a lot out of this video. We really look forward to seeing you on the next longboard SUP surfing video where we talk about nose riding. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon.